Dr. Walter Jan, and here we are at the Bashakill. This is an incredible wetland, which is the result of a glacier having sat here and helped, press down the earth, and thus water afterwards sank in this depressed area. And it is a preserve thanks to the Bashakill Area Association and the DEC, which protects this habitat. What I'd like to do is maybe just talk about why it's an incredible resource first, and then maybe some of the challenges which face it. There's a whole host of reasons and things we need to protect it from. Just speaking about birds for a second, there was a study that came out, the first of its kind, about 5 years ago, that had concluded that North America has lost about a quarter of its birds. That's an incredible number of birds, about 3 billion birds, just, in a handful of decades. And part of it is, we can get back to, as we humans take up more and more space, we develop these areas. I mean, obviously development's important as we have more and more people, but we also want to preserve this habitat. So specifically, because this is a wetland, not only are we talking about like forested areas, but also water. As we bring in more people and also more industrial base, a lot of times they will place demands on water systems, and that would then limit the amount of water which comes here. And so as planning boards and communities decide what groups to sanction and permit, water usage is certainly an issue. Not only the amount of water which comes in here, but also what's in the water, because obviously there are pollutants. So if we have more septic systems which are not adequately treated, if we're using fertilizer on nearby agricultural fields, that can cause algal blooms, which then lead to such microbial growth that now there's no oxygen here. And if we look out, we may see some boaters going out. A lot of people love to kayak, but also to fish. But you can get to the point where there is so little oxygen in the water that really you're not going to get much in the way of fish, and certainly not the game fish like bass and trout. They require a lot of oxygen. So the more sewage, which causes what's called eutrophication, where there's more nutrients here that causes these microbial blooms, now you're going to get less of those fish. We worry about heavy metals, where bald eagles and herons, when we look at them and ask why some numbers might be declining, we see that very often they have lead, they have cadmium, they have mercury and other contaminants. And so obviously if there's anything that we humans are doing is increasing the spill off of these heavy metals, that is certainly an issue. Unfortunately, a lot of our chemicals, some from plastics, are what we call endocrine disruptors, where they look like steroid hormones, like they look like estrogen, for example. And so when they get in waterways, they're going to affect fish development, where there's, the Chesapeake Bay is a huge problem with this, where so many of the male fish are producing proteins that one associates with females laying eggs because of the chemicals which we've dumped into the water. And since a lot of people then eat these fish, we have to not only be worried about, the fish, the birds that eat the fish, but also we humans which eat the fish as well.